You got these three young champions that want all the smoke. I'm sure every single one of these guys wants to prove themselves and get the biggest fights possible. And that's the thing about the welterweight division right now. It's interesting. There are some good fighters. They're not universally known. They're not worldwide attractions yet, which generally means that they're willing to fight.
It is time for Boxing Scene's Top Stories, only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I am George DeMatteis, and the best way to experience everything ProBox TV has to offer is to visit our app, ProBox TV app. So get the app where apps are available, including a new chat function that'll allow you to speak with the champions during our live events here on ProBox TV. Well, I'm George DeMatteis, as I mentioned before, and I am joined by our champions. We got Chris Algieri, and we got Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, IBF welterweight champion Jerome Boots Ennis and WBO welterweight champion Brian Norman Jr. are going back and forth over whether Norman or Boots offered a contract to stage a unification fight between those two fighters. However, Norman is saying they didn't receive any offer, and Ennis' side is saying they did receive an offer. Now, Brian Norman Sr. is involving himself to try to get this fight made. So, Chris, what do you make of this back and forth here between Jerome Boots Ennis and Brian Norman, with each side denying that each side made an offer to the other side, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is a case of he said, she said, and we're really not going to know what's going on behind the scenes until everything is brought underneath the light. In terms of making this fight happen, I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, to get these guys together, unifications. We live in a world of unifications. We're seeing unifications all over the place. You got a guy like Jerome Ennis, Brian Norman, who had a great win against Santillan, his last fight. I mean, spectacular finish, spectacular performance, spectacular knockout. And then Crawford moves up. He gets elevated to full champion. And if he wants to prove himself and be a champion, you got to fight the best guys in the weight class, fight the best guys in the world. And most people believe that's Jerome Ennis. You got Stanionis, who's another titleist who was elevated, who is an interim champ who has been elevated. So you got these three young champions that want all the smoke. I'm sure every single one of these guys wants to prove themselves and get the biggest fights possible. And that's the thing about the welterweight division right now. It's interesting. There are some good fighters. They're not universally known. They're not worldwide attractions yet, which generally means that they're willing to fight. A lot of times, no one's going to be protecting themselves, kind of like some champions tend to do these days. So I think these guys are willing to fight each other. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to make this fight happen. Get all those guys going. Mario Barros is another guy who's very talented, who could be in that mix. He's like the old man in the division at this point, at welterweight, since everybody's moved up. All these guys are very young, a lot of young champions. So I'd say, get this going. But in terms of what's going on back and forth, I have no idea what's going on with that. None of us do. You can say he said it, I said it, I sent it, you turned it down. I really hope that's not the case. I hope it's more of just a miscommunication. Because why not make this fight? I think it makes a lot of sense for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think that this should probably be an easy fight to make, champ. There's one little tidbit though that makes me wonder: does Top Rank have the options on Norman after beating Santillan? I'm not sure. He won the title on ESPN. There could be a network issue there, promotional issue there with Norman.
Well, I think Norman's a Top Rank fighter as well, I believe. I've called him on Top Rank Air.
Norman is, yes. but Ennis is with the Zone. And
right.
Well, yeah, so that would be ESPN and Top Rank, the Zone. That could be the only thing that maybe might be a hurdle. That's why there's this he said, she said stuff. It could just be network and promotional politics because they're not aligned together. Remember, when a promoter has the belt, they don't typically want to lose that belt. They want to keep the belt in-house. If you really figure it, Ennis would be the favorite against Norman, right? So Top Rank realizes that and say, we don't want to hand over this belt to the Zone and to Eddie Hearn if this guy beats a guy who just basically upset our guy, So we may want to keep him around and shift the title to within our stable. That's typically how a promoter. I'm not defending the action. I'm just saying this is typically how a promoter moves. They like to keep the belts within their stable. They don't care who has it within their stable unless there's maybe a guy who can be more lucrative with a title than another guy. So then they'll try to shift it over to that fighter within their stable. But they definitely don't want to lose the belt outside of their stable unless it's a major event. That's the issue here. Norman and Ennis is an easy fight to make, because both guys kind of need each other. They both need to make as big a fight as they can in a welterweight division that's not as big as it used to be. But having said that, this is out of their control here, because not so much Ennis, because I think Eddie realizes Ennis is probably the favorite against anybody and would probably make him against anybody in the welterweight division. But it's just getting the guys to fight him. I think Norman easily would want to fight Ennis as well. It seems like he would be. And in the position he's in, he's got no reason not to be confident in wanting to get in with anybody. Also starting to finally make some big money. You just want a title. You want to make some big money, and the Ennis fight allows you to get into the some bigger money. If I dare to guess and just hypothesize here, I think it's more of a network promotional issue here than anything else. And then these guys kind of going at each other, sort of like politics, where the same people run both parties, but people argue with each other about the parties when it actually doesn't even matter. In this case, you have Norman and Ennis arguing with each other about who he said, she said, like you said, Champ, who's to blame over the fight not happening, when in reality it's probably the higher ups and the promotional liabilities that the promoter doesn't want to take.
Yeah, hopefully they can get rid of the he said, she said there and make this fight happen. Both of them undefeated, holding world titles. That would be a great fight. Jerron Boots Ennis versus Brian Norman Jr. You know what else is great? The QR code, if you scan it, to take you to proboxtv.com, download the app where apps are available, because on the app, you can watch the best live fight series in all of boxing. Another edition coming up September 11th here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I'm George DeMatteis, and that does it for Top Stories. Boxing Scenes Top Stories.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, September 11th. Rising Guatemalan star Lester Martinez puts his O on the line against fellow undefeated warrior Showtime James. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.